I am ready for lesson 4 of module 13. So you should have your math books with you and a pencil, and we'll get working. So I'm on page 365, and our lesson title says represent and name fractions on a number line. So we've worked so far on fractions about how to represent and name them when we have like a shape and it's divided into equal parts, or we have a group of something and we write a fraction to represent one part of that group. So now we're gonna do fractions on a number line. So I'm super excited. Our I can statement says I can identify, describe, represent, and locate fractions on a number line. That's a lot, but deep breath, it'll be totally groovy. Let's do our Spark Your Learning. It says, Michaela works for the Park Service. Her job is to place trail markers on the trail from the ranger station to Baldy Mountain. The markers should be placed at locations that mark 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 of the distance from the ranger station to Baldy Mountain. Show each of Michaela's markers on the number line. Label the distance of each marker from the ranger station. So one thing that we need to know when we are working with fractions on a number line, we need to think of our number line as a whole or a whole group, and all we're doing is dividing the number line into equal parts. So that's kind of how I want you guys to think about it. So if she needs to place the markers at 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4 of the distance, that tells me that our number line is going to be divided into 4 equal sections. How do I know that it's 4 equal sections? Well, the denominator is 4, and the denominator for all of those fractions is 4. Now, one thing I know is that 4/4, that is our whole one, it's just one. I was gonna say mile, but it didn't say miles. It just says 1/4 of the distance. And so I don't know if it's a 1/4 of a mile or not, so don't worry about miles. But I do know that 4/4 represents 1. So that is going to be my the Baldy Mountain, where it says 1. And I know 4/4 is 1 because I have 4 equal pieces and I'm counting all 4 of them. So that would be 1 whole. So now I just have to label 3/4, 2/4, and 1/4. So I'm going to take the distance from the ranger station to Baldy Mountain and divide it into 4 equal sections. To do that, I draw 3 lines. And so I just kind of eyeball it. 1, 2, 3. There we go. I'll make it bigger so you can see. Okay, so I just kind of eyeball it, and so I can space them out evenly. So now this, from 0 all the way to that first distance, that is 1/4 of the distance. Then from 0 all the way to this line, that's 2/4 of the distance. Okay, and then from 0 all the way to this line is 3/4 of the distance. And then from 0 all the way to 1 is 4/4 of the distance. So when I label fractions on a number line, really all I'm doing is taking my whole number line, 0 to 1, and dividing it into equal parts, 4 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does that make sense? So, pretty simple. Sometimes when we think about fractions, I know I've said this before, but sometimes when we think about fractions, or we're doing fractions on a number line, our brain instantly is like, oh my gosh, that's so scary. I can't do that. That is too hard. That is too much math. Can't do it. So we need to say, no, I can do it. It's not as complicated as I might think. And so just keep trying and remember, we're laying the foundation for later grades when the fractions will get a little bit more complicated, but you've got this awesome, solid foundation now in 3rd grade, so you'll crush it. All right, I'm on page 366, Build Understanding. On the way to school, Leo stops at Blackberry Pond. What fraction of the 1 mile distance to school has Leo gone? So, I want to know how far away Leo's home is to Blackberry Pond. He stops there on our way to school. So before we find that out, we need to answer these questions down here. Part A says, into how many equal lengths is the whole mile divided? Now, how do I know what the equal lengths of the mile is divided into? It's asking me how many parts are there from 0 to 1. Now, right here, it says 0 over 6, and at 1, it says 6 over 6. So I can assume that I'm dividing into 6. If it didn't share that, I could just count. I could say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 equal parts, so that tells me that I'm dividing into sixths. So you'll write that down, 6. Which part of a fraction shows the number of equal lengths in the whole, the numerator or the denominator? Okay, so, and then it asks which part of the fraction shows the number of equal lengths you are counting. So it has 2 different questions here. So let's answer the first one. I'm gonna do a number 1 and circle it. So the first question says, which part of a fraction shows the number of equal lengths in the whole? So is it the top number or the bottom number that tells me how many equal lengths are there in the entire thing, whatever it is we're counting? That would be the bottom number, which is the denominator. So number 1 is denominator. Denominator. I had to sand it out. Okay, and then the second question, I'm going to write a 2 and circle it. The second question is saying, which part of the fraction shows the number of equal lengths you are counting? What are we counting? What are we focusing on? That is the number on top, and that is called the numerator. We learned that from yesterday, or Friday's lesson. All right. Okay. So locate and draw a point on the number line to show the distance from Leo's home to Blackberry Pond. So I want to label this part of the fraction. If this is 0.6, then this one is 1 away from 0, so it's 1 out of 6. The next one would be 2 out of 6. The next one is 3 out of 6. The next one is 4 out of 6, and finally 5 out of 6, and then 6 out of 6 is already written for us. So Blackberry Pond is right here. So which fraction is that? 4/6. So what fraction represents 1 equal length of the whole? That would be 1/6. 1 equal length from, what fraction represents 1 equal length of the whole? So what it's asking is, how do I write 1 part of the entire whole? That's our unit fraction. Remember that from the first lesson? Or was that the second lesson? I think it was the second lesson. So this first one is 1/6. So this part, what that means is this part from here to here is our unit fraction. This is 1/6, which means each of these are 1/6. So what fraction names the distance from Leo's home to Blackberry Pond? 1 6 1 6 1 6 1 6. So how many 6 do I have all together? 4. So 4/6. All right, number 2, what fraction does point A show? So now this number line doesn't have any fractions telling us what we're counting. So what we do is we say, okay, how many equal parts are there? There are 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there are 4 equal sections on this number line, which means that the denominator is 4. So into how many equal lengths is the distance from 0 to 1 divided? We just counted it. It is 4 equal lengths. So words like parts and lengths, what else? Pieces. So you'll hear me saying pieces or parts or lengths, and those are all words used to describe the same thing. This is a piece of the number line, it is a length of the number line, and it is a part of the number line. Same thing. So if you hear me saying part, but then before I called it length, same thing, no worries. Part B says, how many equal lengths are being counted? Well, if I'm part A, I'm only counting up till A. So I'm counting 1, 2, 3. So how many equal lengths are being counted? 3. So what is the fraction? Well, I'm counting 3, so that goes on top. That's my numerator. How many are there all together? 4, so that goes on the bottom. So point A is at the fraction 3/4. My gosh, you guys are doing amazing. Okay, number 3. I'm on the next page, page 367. Anya and Kat walk from home to the local history museum. When they are 1/3 of the way to the museum, they stop at the library. They stop again to read their library books at the park when they are 2/3 of the way to the museum. Complete the number line to show how to represent these distances. All we're doing is representing the distances. So now, this fraction, I'm gonna underline the important information. So 1/3 is when they're at the library, 2/3 of the way is when they're at the park. So it asks me to complete the number line to represent these distances. Now what I'm noticing about these fractions, they have the same denominator. So that tells me how many equal lengths or how many equal parts are going to be on this number line. So how many equal parts? 3. So I'm going to draw my 3 equal pieces. So I draw 2 lines for my 3 equal sections, okay? So if this is 0, that means this is 1/3 of the way. And where did they go at 1/3? The library. So I'm gonna write library on top. And then the next one would be 2/3. And where were they? 2/3 of the way to the museum? They were at the park. Which means 1 is 3/3. That's all 3 parts. And this is the museum. And then they started, where did they start? They started at home, so I'll label home at 0. Home, 1/3 of the way to the museum, they stopped at the library. 2/3 of the way, they stopped at the park, and 3/3 is the museum. Feeling groovy? All right, okay. Number 1, let's do our check understanding. It says, complete the number line. Label the fractions, locate and draw a point on the number line to show 5/8. Complete the number line, label the fractions. All right, locate and draw a point on the number line to show 5/8. So I'm dividing this number line into 8ths. So if this is 0, then this would be 1/8. This would be 2/8. The next one would be 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8. Put a point at 5/8. There it is right there. And I'm done. Easy peasy. Write the fractions that name the points E and F. Okay, so here's E and here's F. It doesn't have any fractions there for us, so we got to do some thinking. Well, my whole number line is divided into 6 equal parts. So this is 0. This would be 1/6, 2/6. The next one would obviously be 3/6. That's point E. So over here at point E is going to be 3/6. And then the next one would be 4/6. And that is point F, 4/6. Ta-da! All right, let's do the on your own. Okay, number 4. Reese's poster is 2/4 of a yard wide. Okay, I'm gonna pause really quick. When we are reading a sentence or describing fractions, the way we say it really matters. So when I read this sentence, Reese's poster is 2/4, I said of a yard. Okay, so I want you to kind of get in the habit of saying that because it's 2/4 of something. If we say 2/4 yard wide, it's just kind of sticky. I don't like it. But if you say 2/4 of a yard, it's like, oh, I'm taking a yard, I'm splitting it up into fourths, and I'm talking about 2 of them. Does that make sense? So that's just how you say it. Even though it doesn't say of a in between 2/4 and a yard, that's how you say it. All right, back to the problem. Complete the number line, label the fractions, locate and draw a point on the number line to show the width of Reese's poster. So we know that the number line is going to be divided into 4 equal parts because the denominator is 4. That tells us the total. So here is 0/4, there's 4/4. In between, so after 0 will be 1/4, then 2/4, then 3/4. Okay, now this is really nice because they already did the lines for us. Now we have to draw a point on the number line to show the width. So the width is 2/4 of a yard. So I'm gonna find 2/4 on my number line and put a dot on the line. Number 5, Abe marks points H and I on the number line. Write the fraction that names each point. Okay, so this one's kind of tricky because it doesn't have any fractions. It doesn't tell us what our denominator is, and so we have to count the equal parts. How many equal parts do we have? So from 0 to this line is 1 part. 0 to this line is 2. This one would be 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are 6 equal parts on this number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. So I know my denominator for both fractions is going to be 6. So I just filled in 6 for both. Now H, right here, let's count. This is 1, 2. So this is at 2, 6. Then this would be 3, 4, 5, 6 is point I. Okay, feeling good? Number 6, Izzy marks a number line to show, Izzy marks a number line to show 8s. What is the fraction that is located halfway between 6/8 and 8/8? Explain. Okay, so we want to know halfway between 6/8 and 8/8. What is the fraction in between those? So in order to find out, we're going to draw our own number line, and I'm going to use the blue lines as like my number line. So I'm just going to do bam, bam, right there. This is 0, this is 1. And so since it's 6/8 and 8/8, my denominator is 8. which tells me I'm dividing my number line into 8 equal lengths. So I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it. So that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, kind of got a little squishy at the end, but that's okay. So 0, this would be 0/8. This would be 8/8. Now 0, the next number would be 1/8, because that is one piece of the whole. And then the next one would be 2/8, and then 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and then 8/8. So there's all my numbers, all my fractions. Now it says, what is the fraction that is located halfway between 6/8 and 8/8? What fraction is in between those 6/8 and 7? Oh, I just gave it away. What's in between 6/8 and 8/8? 7/8. Okay, and so how you would explain this, you would just say, well, I drew my number line. I knew that I had to divide it into 8 equal lengths because the denominator of both fractions was 8. And then I just focused on 6/8 and 8/8 and found out what was in between those two fractions. And that's how you would explain it. All right, let's see. Would drawing my own diagrams help me better understand how to place fractions on a number line? What do you think? Would that help you? I think it would help you. The one thing that we have to be careful about drawing our own diagrams and doing our own number lines is that we have to just be really careful and try to get it as exact as possible. I mean, you can see my fraction is definitely not perfect, but it's very close. If we drew something like this, where all the lines, it's like, okay, that's normal. Oh, super close, super far away, super far away, super close. And we're like, oh, that's fifths. What? That doesn't show fifths. So that wouldn't help us understand it. But if you were to draw it on your own, we know that if we can do it on our own and describe it by ourselves, we know we have a good understanding about the concept. So it would help you for sure. We just have to be careful. All right, that is all for lesson 4. Let me know if you have any questions. Do the lesson 4 homework in your practice and homework journal. I hope it goes well. And yeah, I'll see you later. Love your guts.